Hey everybody, it's Thad from the History Dweebs podcast with another episode of History Dweebs Shorts. Today we're going to talk about a little factoid about space or space exploration. As Gene Roddenberry coined in Star Trek, space is the final frontier. And it is and always will be because the more we learn, the more questions we have. How big is the universe? Is there life out there? Will we ever get to the speed of light? These are questions that may never be answered. But we're going to take a look at an interesting factoid that happened in the 1950s when it comes to space exploration, you could say. All right, so let's get into it. One thing that we've all done at a time or two, or probably several, is looked up at the stars in our backyard, laying on a beach, on vacation in the mountains, wherever, and really wondered what's up there and what's out there. So it's been established that space actually begins 100 kilometers above Earth, or 62.1 miles. It's called the Kármán line. Above the Kármán line is where the International Space Station is and where all of our man-made satellites hang out. Humans have been fascinated by and studied space all the way back to antiquity to explain things like seasons and tides and droughts. Scores of scientists and astronomers have, over the years, given us all kinds of great information about space and astronomy. Names like Claudius Ptolemy, Nicholas Copernicus, Johannes Kepler, Galileo, Cassini, Henrietta Swan, Leavitt Newton, Annie Jump Cannon. They've all shaped humanity's understanding of astronomy and space. American astronomer Carl Sagan, while perhaps maybe not as brilliant as those mentioned earlier in the list, was almost second to none with popularizing astronomy. The guy was a rock star. And when more eyes are on any subject matter, it helps boost more study and more discovery. As an educator, Carl Sagan wrote numerous books and articles about space. None more famous, probably, than Pale Blue Dot, that he wrote in 1994. This photo, taken on February 14th, 1990 by Voyager 1, at a distance of 3.7 billion miles from Earth. Upon seeing the photo, Sagan wrote the following: "That's here, that's home, that's us. On it everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you've ever heard of, every human being who ever was, they lived out their lives. The aggregate of your joy and suffering, thousands of confident religions, ideologies, and economic doctrines. Every hunter, every forager, every hero and coward, every creator and destroyer of civilization, every king and peasant, every young couple in love, every mother and father, hopeful child, inventor and explorer, every teacher of morals, every corrupt politician, every superstar, every supreme leader, every saint and sinner in the history of our species lived there, on a moor dust of suspended in a sunbeam." Carl Sagan wrote that, of the pale blue dot. But all of Sagan's works weren't without controversy. One in particular revolved around a really special kind of assignment that, as a grad student, he was recruited for. See, in 1957, Russia had launched Sputnik, and the United States and Russia were right in the middle of the space race Cold War for post war world dominance. Once Russia put Sputnik into space, well, the United States was now second in a two-man competition. The world needed to see that the United States was competing, and the way to do that after Sputnik was to show an enormous example of dominance. We needed something ambitious, extraordinary, and marvelous. So the Air Force came up with an idea. Hey, let's nuke the moon. Yes, that moon. As a young graduate student, Carl Sagan was approached by Dr. Leonard Riefel of the Armor Research Foundation and was asked to study the effects and impact of nuclear explosion on the moon. This was a chance to push the boundaries of science during these exciting times. This could be a terrific approach to try and identify the presence of bacteria or organic compounds on the moon. Carl Sagan thought this was a great opportunity. The man who would devote his life to seeking proof of life on other worlds. Rifle's team was also curious if the nuclear blast would produce enough seismic activity to evaluate the makeup of the moon's immediate subsurface structure. They knew that this theory, they knew that this action would put them firmly in first place in the space race. Now, obviously, we never sent a nuclear weapon to the moon, or else we would all know about it. That's not exactly something you can hide. But the project was abandoned, and no real reason was ever given, at least officially. Early American ballistic missile technology is still classified. Some claim that the Air Force ended the program because of the potential risk to humans on Earth and the unfortunate event that the mission catastrophically failed. Others claim that the scientists were worried about radioactive contamination on the moon, which would have prevented any further missions to put a man on its surface, or even lunar colonization. The moon is approximately 240,000 miles away from Earth, and years later, in an interview, Rifle said that he had the technology to place a nuclear bomb within 2 miles of the moon. That's pretty darn impressive from 240,000 miles away. So he could pick a spot on the moon and hit that spot within 2 miles. That's amazing. With the exception of the oceans, we've explored almost every corner of Earth. And even with the oceans, that's a finite amount. Completely the opposite of space. Space is almost infinite. How big is it? We have no idea, and we probably never will know. It's what's next. And depending on what happens with space colonization and weaponization, it's a story that still has to be told. And it's pretty exciting to think about. Well, thanks for listening to this edition of History Dweeb Shorts. Remember to check us out on our flagship podcast, History Dweebs, and also check us out on TikTok. Thanks a lot.